Hello Gabs, and welcome back to another RPG Horror Stories. If you can't tell, I'm recording this one right after the other one, so go to last week and check that out if it was posted last week. Maybe not, I don't know when it was posted, but check out the last one because this is not a continuation. I'm just recording it in the same day, so if my mannerisms still seem the same, check out my previous video for the reason. Nothing new, we are reading RPG stories from either my subreddit or the RPG Horror subreddit. If they're horror, I don't know, they're mostly probably going to be horror because that's mostly what anybody uploads. But hey, you can upload any type of RPG story to my subreddit, okay? You can post funny ones, horror ones, you can post them about MMOs, just any type of RPG story as long as it's entertaining. Post it to my subreddit and I might read it. I mean, right now I'll read it here. But with the intro out of the way, let's get into today's RPG stories. Our first story comes from Livid Village 8466, my first and last session of D&D. I joined a group of 3 led by my friend's brother who all promised to be patient with me and help me through character creation and general rules of the session. I made a tiefling rogue who was raised by zealots to hate tieflings and saw himself as impure. It was a bit generic, but the DM was happy with my character and approved of the design. Fast forward to the first online session. I joined slightly late due to the power cutting and found myself joining the party in a haunted house, where we encountered 2 ghosts of tiefling children and they offered a riddle to solve a puzzle. The DM did allow for roleplay and encouraged, so I and the character tried to recruit them to my cult with the promise of reaching paradise with the price of admittance being the answer to the riddle. I asked if I had to roll a charisma check and the DM got mad and said I was being disruptive and proceeded to server mute me on Discord. I then tried to text on the channel asking to be unmuted and that I would go along with the DM. The DM ignored me and even said, "Was that the win?" type of statement. I was left muted and forced to be a spectator in a session I was looking forward to. I then blocked the DM and got a call from my friend asking if I was really quitting the session because of one joke and told me I should come back. I did it. Wow, starting off with a short one, but that doesn't lessen the horror of the story anymore. Guys, be kind to your new players. I would hate this if I was looking forward to a session online, you join, and then you just get server muted after trying to roleplay, and then they have the gall to say, "Oh, but it was just a joke. Come on, it was just a joke. Come back." I mean, at that point, no. I would have done the same thing. I would have quit. There's so many other online tables that you can go to, even if it's not your friends. There are tons of welcoming people out there. You just have to find the one eventually and settle in. This was definitely not welcoming. I mean, getting to roleplay and then the DM just, "You're being disruptive. Shut up." And then you try to ask for an unmute and then you're forced to spectate the session the entire time. Look, I don't know how long they stayed muted, but if it was more than like 10 minutes, I would have just left, you know. I'm not going to sit around for an hour. You know, D&D sessions can get pretty long, so I'm not going to sit around for like 2+ hours being muted because the DM wanted to tell a joke. Yeah, right. So yeah, they did the good thing of just quitting and trying to find, or I guess we don't know if they tried to find another group, but quitting was definitely the right decision, as they say. No RPG is better than a, what was it? How does it go? It's like no D&D is better than bad D&D, but I think we should apply it to more than D&D because there's more systems than D&D. So I say no RPG is better than bad RPGs. Right? Whatever. We're moving on to the next story. Our next story comes from Drag Home. Infinite Shopping Roleplay. Addiction Warning. That's a new one. Disclaimer, I'm bad at using the sub tag, so I put addiction because alcohol is very relevant to the story. That's the wrong tag. Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. Anyways, a friend of mine invited me to make a guest appearance in a game he was DMing. According to him, it was an ongoing campaign. I would show up as a new character who was secretly a traitor. The plan was simple. I'd play a single session, die in combat, and reveal the campaign's main villain. Easy, cinematic, dramatic. When the day of the session arrived, I realized that this wasn't an old campaign at all. In fact, it was either the first or second session of the group, so I shrugged and played along. The game was online, Discord plus Roll20. Everyone was playing from home, except for one player, who I'll call Carl, who was physically at the DM's house. Let's call the DM Peter. The session started out normally. Everyone was a beginner, things were clunky but fine. Then I started noticing something odd. Peter and Carl were laughing. A lot. Like constantly. It didn't take long to realize why. They had been drinking all day and were already pretty drunk by the time the session really got going. Eventually, we reached a small village. This was supposed to be a quick resting point before the cave where the villain would appear and where I would reveal my betrayal. The party decided to buy supplies. Peter described the village as very simple, so small that it was hard to even find decent weapons or equipment. And that's where the true horror began. Very drunk, Carl started suggesting items for the shop. Not reasonable items, I'm talking about insanely powerful magic swords, dragon wings you could just strap onto your character, invisible armor, and other completely unhinged nonsense. Instead of shutting this down, Peter found it hilarious and kept encouraging him. What followed was 3 hours of Peter and Carl inventing increasingly absurd shop items, laughing uncontrollably, while I and the other 3 players sat there in silence, trapped as an unwilling audience. If this is online, you guys can just leave. Again, if it's longer than like 20 or 30 minutes and they're not doing anything, then just leave. You don't have to sit there. You can just like leave and then, it's Discord. You can just type whatever happened, but everyone handles situations differently and it might have been different in the moment. Let's continue on. Because it was already very late, Peter eventually realized time was a thing and rushed the rest of the adventure into about 30 minutes just to end the session. Since I was only there as a guest, I have no idea what happened after that, but I strongly doubt there was even a second follow-up session. This happened a few years ago, and with what I know now, I strongly suspect Peter and Clara were hoping to be alone together that night, which only made the situation even stranger. Not because they're both men, I'm bisexual myself, but because of the rest of us basically spent 3 hours watching what felt like a subtle kind of flirting disguised as shop roleplay. I don't know what happened with Carl since I wasn't in contact with him at the time, but Peter is a really nice person. So I'll never play another RPG with him, both because of this incident and other problems we had in a different campaign where we were both players. But those are horror stories for another post. Another post I'd like to see. Come on down to my... How many times can I show my subreddit in one video? Anyways, let's talk about this. I already said it, but if you're spending that much time just sitting there in silence watching these two meander about 3 hours, yeah, that's a long time. Maybe cut it at the 10-20 mark. If they're obviously not gonna keep going or just try to say something, and if they don't stop, just leave. You're online. You can just leave whenever you want for any reason. You can make up any reason and just disappear. That's the beauty of playing online. And that's about it. Don't let yourself get locked into really long side stories. I don't even know what you want to call this. The whole last part of the story kind of wrapped it up. There was disguised subtle flirting, but I don't know. I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm just a goblin in a cave. What do you want from me? But yeah, don't get locked into really long sessions that you don't want to be a part of, especially if it's online. Moving on to our final story. Our final story comes from Layla Bo Blue. Not safe for work, guys, okay? SA warning, guys, okay? Trigger warning, guys. Sexual content and fictional abuse. Now that we got that out of the way, let's read the title. The Gooner's DM NPC molested my, at the time, dead barbarian player character. Okay, I see why they put all those warnings beforehand. Let's get into the story. Strap in, everybody. I played my first full-length D&D campaign fresh out of high school with a group of friends. The game was ran by a less than savory gooner of a DM with a toxic habit of making everything painfully over-sexual, ignoring boundaries, and trying to push romance onto anything with a pulse both in-game and out. And why are you friends with this if it's making you uncomfortable? If it made you uncomfortable, why? I mean, I guess, that's just Billy Bob. That's just how he is. It's fine. No, if it's making you uncomfortable, you can just not be friends with I mean, it's not that simple. If they were already like that outside of the game, I don't know why you would want to do a game with them, but, I'm not that person. I'm not there in the moment, so it could have possibly been something entirely different. I know I wouldn't want to be part of that, but let's continue on. Maybe they have a reasoning. It's worth noting that this was nearly a decade ago, and she had not yet transitioned into a woman. Her identifying as male to female is largely unimportant to the story, but I feel it provides important context, as I am a woman who had barely turned 18 at the beginning of our campaign. I've obviously continued to use the DM's proper she/her pronouns, even though this was not her identity at the time of this event. I was an incredibly insecure people pleaser. Okay, there we go. And let a lot slide more than I should have. Okay, that kind of explains it. The DM had a very obvious crush on my barbarian PC, who was your typical big buff golden retriever of a man. Entered the unofficial DM PC, a Warforged robot who immediately had the hots for the barbarian and brought on immediate discomfort. The DM wasted no time with her hypersexual jokes towards the barbarian, awkwardly forced romance encounters, and campaign railroading just to give the barbarian and the robot plot lines while sidelining the other two PCs in our campaign completely. Is that a run-on sentence, or did I just read that bad? Whatever. I also believe that the DM got more and more desperate, and therefore more persistent. When the barbarian began to fall for the other PC in the party, the rogue, which, thank God, honestly, that ship was in-game, the desperation led to the worst RP interaction I've ever had, hands down. Completely unprompted, the robot confided in my barbarian that his metal body was technically unfinished. Of course, the missing part of the robot was his dingaling. Which, yeah, already bad. The robot then asked the barbarian if he would whip his own human out so that, the robot could draw it right then and there to model his metal one after. I vaguely remember the robot saying something about the barbarians being a nice specimen. I, as the barbarian, told the robot that was super weird and uncomfortable. I absolutely denied this request in character, but I really should have slammed on the brakes and quit the campaign right there. For whatever reason, I felt I had to play along, and I could not have said it better myself. Should have absolutely just quitted the quitted? Is that the right word? Should have just left the campaign right there, honestly. It's not the worst thing I've ever read, but it's the worst thing I've read in a while. It got worse. Oh boy. The session ended with a planned TPK that went off without giving us a shot to fight back or even roll initiative, supposedly to advance the plot. When the party came to, we were being tended to by the gosh darn robot, who had been tending to our necrotic, rotting PC bodies for 6 years in-game. As we as players were trying to come to terms with it, the robot gleefully proclaimed that during his years of tending to our corpses, he had become very familiar. The robot got to do the thing it wanted to do. Very cool and normal interactions to have with your friends during D&D. We as a party basically told the robot to F off and never come back, in no uncertain terms. We should have said it to the DM herself. I wish I'd been smart enough to realize the DM was who she was, and had called her out on her BS way earlier. I still play with the other two players from that table, one of which is the DM, and is an incredibly talented storyteller and RPer. Thank goodness I have an absolutely awesome group that would never pull that buffoonery. Couldn't have said it better myself. Just leave. I mean, this time it was I was assuming it's in person, so it's a lot harder to leave when it's in person. But still, again, if it's making you uncomfortable and it's taking away your fun, then you don't have to sit there and endure it. You can leave for any reason that you wish. Okay? So don't put up with this, okay? If someone's making you uncomfortable and you don't want to do this, don't put up with it. Just leave. I mean, you could try to talk it out with them. You know, I say try to solve it outside of the game. So you could try. If it doesn't work, then just leave. And that's about all the advice I could give you guys. That was a doozy to read. But we got through all of our stories. And thanks to all the OPs for writing these stories. They were hopefully entertaining to listen to. And if you want your story read, again, go check out my subreddit. And check my other social media in the description. Check my channel trailer for other content. If you enjoy the type of content, then subscribe. And that is all. Thank you for watching. And I hope you gobs have a lop of a day. And may your adventures be free from terrible, awful, creepy people.